this Watford side with attacking players like Ismaila Sarr, who was linked to Manchester United in the summer, with João Pedro, this incredibly silky and flair-based Brazilian striker as well, and managed to make them such a turgid watch. They were a drab football team, and Munoz has come in and completely changed the way they play, adopting a 4-3-3, which suits much better than Ivic's 4-4-2. And again, they've managed to keep hold of key players. Will Hughes is somebody who I think when he first started playing in the Premier League, we didn't expect him to come back to the Championship. In the second half of the season, he's been incredibly important to them. Tom Cleverley as well, having a very good season. They're a team littered with Premier League players, and all Munoz seemingly had to do was just give them the freedom to play. And both Watford and Bournemouth have had periods of this campaign where they've been so disappointing, and despite it, they look like they're going to finish second and third. And as I mentioned, I think they both go up to the Premier League with squads who are already basically Premier League quality and just need that quality in the dugout to go alongside it.
It's funny, Andy, with Watford, isn't it? Because, of course, we know them as a club whose owners like to change managers pretty regularly, and they were criticised for sacking Nigel Pearson back end of last season with 2 games to go. And, of course, it did end up leading to their relegation. So you might have thought, I wonder if they'll just think we'll do things differently. They're doing it exactly the same, and it's working.
Yeah, well... Anytime something has to pay off at some point, but if I'm being totally honest with you, I didn't think that it was rocket science when you go in with Watford. I watched them earlier on in the season, and I couldn't believe that some of their more attacking players were they looked so restricted. They looked like they were almost being told every position that they had to be, and there was no real flair, there was no real imagination to them. And then all of a sudden you change from a 3, and most of the time it was a 5 at the back, and then a little tweak when the new manager comes in. 4-3-3, as George has mentioned, you get your wide players really attacking and kind of letting them have a little bit of freedom. Sarr has started to really be prominent in their attacks. Will Hughes is dominating possession, he's building play, and they're playing out from the back, they're playing through the towards, and they're quite dynamic as well. So sometimes the simple stuff in football gets overlooked, and everybody wants everything to be, all different formations and people running everywhere and lots of changes in and out of possession. And sometimes when you've got really good players, you just set up something really simple and go out and say to them, on you go and show me what you can do. You've got a solid base, so you make sure that on transition you're really secure, so you don't keep getting kind of hit on the counter attack. And then you let your good players go and express themselves. You let them, give them the freedom to try things, to get in positions, to change positions, for a wide player to end up playing a little bit central, for the fullbacks to go high and to kind of overlap, and you get paid dividends. But you've got to make the players believe it. It's all about them relationships and making the players believe that they're good and making them believe that they've got the freedom to go out and express themselves. No point in having good players if you don't let them go and express themselves.
We better pick up the pace here, guys, because I've just realised, as I said at the top of the show, there are 9 clubs in the EFL today who could know by 5 o'clock that they are definitely changing decision, good or bad. We haven't seen a team in the EFL relegated yet. Just so you know, there's a 1 o'clock kickoff in League One. Portsmouth versus Bristol Rovers. Joey Barton's Bristol Rovers will be relegated if they don't win that game. And even if they do win, they would need Wigan to lose later against Burton. Otherwise, their future is confirmed in League Two for next season. Let's talk about teams at the bottom of the tables in the Championship. George, 2 could go today, Wycombe and Sheffield Wednesday.
Yeah, I mean, for Wycombe, I think it's almost an achievement in itself that they've managed to get this far. It was always going to be an incredibly difficult season for them. I know some people will be surprised to hear this, but I think Gareth Ainsworth has done an incredible job this season, despite the fact they sit in 24th position. And only for a little bit of luck here and there, they could have got a lot closer, because early in the season, a lot of very marginal calls, refereeing decisions went against them. Last Saturday, I watched their game against Swansea, who looked likely to be in the playoffs this season, and they were comfortably the better side. They were 2-0 up, conceded 2 goals late on, and then missed effectively an open goal very, very late on, failing to win that game. And that's kind of been the story of their season. Bayo Akinfenwa getting his first goal in midweek to get them a 2-1 win coming from behind against Bristol City. They're a very, very awkward team to play against. And we've been saying it for the last few weeks on the podcast, even though they look destined for relegation, I can guarantee you that Gareth Ainsworth and his squad are looking at that table and see themselves 6 points off safety with 3 games to go. And they will believe, despite the fact they've got difficult games in the next couple of fixtures, they know that Derby have Sheffield Wednesday on final day as well, which means one of those teams is going to drop points. They will be thinking that if they can just pick up 7 points, 9 points from those 3 games that they'll believe they can do, then they could get out of it. For Sheffield Wednesday, it's been a really difficult season, and it's, the appointment of Darren Moore brought some positivity to them. They had that incredible victory, the thrashing over Cardiff, but Darren Moore obviously hasn't been very well with COVID. We all wish him all the best, and it feels like a season that just continually luckless for Wednesday fans, and they'll be hoping. There have been some signs in recent weeks of better play. As I mentioned, they've got Derby away on final day, so if they can just keep Derby in their sights going into that game, they'll give themselves hope. But a torrid one for Wednesday fans who'll be desperate to avoid dropping into League One.
I took a little bit of stick from Forest fans earlier on the week, Steve. I don't know if you see my tweet, but I tweeted that I didn't want Derby to get relegated. And
hang on now, whoa! You're saying that like you were surprised.
Maybe I didn't explain myself as well as I should. No, listen, I loved playing in them games. I loved playing in them East Midlands derbies. They gave me a real buzz. And when the fans get back in, I really want there to be a full house at the City Ground when we go and beat them. And I just want the fans to kind of see that again and to be back involved in that again and not have missed it. But I kind of took the wrong end of the stick, and I was getting some likes from Derby fans where I'm thinking to myself, oh, this is very, very strange. I don't really like this. Please stop liking my stuff, Derby fans.
Well, on Derby then, George, and look, Derby's future is not going to be confirmed today because of the fact that Rotherham have got a couple of games in hand over everybody, and of course that's because they had more than one COVID outbreak earlier in the season. But Rotherham third bottom on 39 points, Derby just outside the relegation zone on 43, so they're only 4 points clear, and Rotherham have got 2 games in hand. They've also got a better goal difference, Rotherham United as well. Derby play Birmingham today, and the comparison there in terms of clubs who've changed manager, Birmingham are 10 points clear now. Like, how did that happen?
Lee Bowyer's done an incredible job, and Andy talks about having fans back at Forest. For me, the idea of a full St Andrews for the first game of next season, welcoming back Lee Bowyer, a player who was so good for them, such great success, welcoming back a former player, having saved them from the brink, would be a game that I would like to be at just for that reception. For Derby, if they do stay up and if Wayne Rooney is still the manager, I think he would still get a hero's reception, because I don't think much of the blame is necessarily being laid at his door. He was dealt a pretty bad hand, came into a difficult situation, and initially he did improve them. I've watched a fair few Derby games recently, and they seem to be a side who are very good at dropping points in all situations. We've seen them play well in games and drop points. They were very, very good in the first half against Blackburn a couple of weeks ago, going 1-0 up in that game and losing it 2-1. They seem to be that kind of side who, at key moments, at key times in games, the opposition keepers pulling off worldy saves where they just can't get that little slice of luck to get them through it. The lack of goals has been a massive issue. Colin Kazim-Richards is their top scorer with 7. Next best is 3, and Kazim-Richards only scored 1 in his last 10 as well. So it's really difficult to make a case for why Derby should stay up given their recent run of form. The thing that's really helped them and benefited them is that Rotherham have had 3 home games in a row and lost all 3. So they have that to thank at the moment, but it's going to be pretty nervy for Derby fans for the final couple of weeks of the season.
On days like this, I'm always looking out for the most simple of permutations, and that's definitely Bristol Rovers, who I mentioned, who will be relegated if they don't beat Portsmouth in the 1 o'clock kickoff, or if Wigan avoid defeat against Burton later. Swindon and Northampton can also go down today from League 1 into League 2. Swindon are at MK Dons. They'll be relegated if they lose or if they avoid defeat, but other results then go against them. Northampton are at Gillingham. They'll be relegated if they lose, and Wimbledon and Wigan both win. So that's more complicated, George. But at the top of League 1, Hull promoted if they beat Lincoln. Easy.
I mean, you say it's easy, but if Lincoln win that one, it's a massive cat amongst the pigeons, because they are only, Lincoln are 7 points off automatic promotion with a game in hand. And if they win that one and rope Hull in a bit closer, I mean, we don't expect that. We think Hull are basically all but up, and it's going to be confirmed sometime soon. But it's probably Peterborough who are looking at that Lincoln Hull game, hoping that Hull maybe do them a favour. At the bottom end of the table, though, is the most interesting for me, Steve. That's where in midweek we had 5 of the bottom 6 all winning. And imagine how frustrating that is as a club. If you're Rochdale, if you're Swindon, if you're Wigan, you put in one of your performances of the season, come into the dressing room and find out all the teams around you have won as well. Bristol Rovers, the only team not to win. They do look all but relegated. Joey Barton, their 3rd manager of the season. Interesting to see if he's still going to be there next campaign in League 2. And hopefully, those teams, Swindon, who parted company with manager John Sheridan, put in their best performance of the season against Pompey in midweek. These sides will be hoping they can repeat that trick, because normally at the bottom end of tables, you win a game, you make up ground pretty quickly. At the bottom of League One at the moment, we've got a fair few teams operating at a pretty high level. So whoever slips up is going to be left behind pretty quickly.
Couple of things on League One for me. I think Wigan, Liam Richardson deserves a real special mention.
Huge.
Unbelievable job, considering all that they've been through, the players that they've had to let go, the team that they've built. I think absolutely fantastic job. And for me, the one of the most important things is my favourite things of League One, the playoffs. I think there's going to be some really, really good teams in that playoffs, and I think that'll be well worth watching out for.
Yeah, Wigan have done a cracking job of getting themselves back on track, and they've got a very good chance of staying in League One. They'll be joined in League One by Cambridge United of League Two. If they beat Stevenage, that's because of the fact that Bolton and Morecambe are playing each other, so they wouldn't be able to both get the number of points that they would need to catch them. At the other end of the table, 2 teams will be relegated to the National League. One of those is going to be Southend United, unless they win their last 3 games and one of the teams immediately above them has an absolutely calamitous run of results. It'd have to be terrible. We could also see relegation confirmed for Grimsby Town if they fail to win at Oldham and Barrow avoid defeat at Tranmere. But let's talk about Southend. People remember Phil Brown in his first spell as manager, promotion from League Two. They went to within a point of the League One playoff places as well. But now he's come back for the final 6 games of the season. He could be the man in charge as they drop out of the EFL after a century of league football. And Phil Brown's been speaking to Mark Clement.
Phil, do you feel a sense of responsibility for the town, for the supporters, for the staff that work around the club? I know the sort of guy you are, and I suspect that weighs heavy on you.
It does weigh heavy on me. It's whenever you go to a football club and if there's relegation involved, sometimes there's cost-cutting exercises. The budget will be smaller next year if you're in the National League, and all of a sudden people that you're relying on, all of a sudden they're not there anymore. Your ground staff gets cut back, your backroom staff gets cut back, your size of squad gets cut back, and the whole town loses a little bit of faith as well. And that's the job now. It's to restore the faith, restore the belief, and I feel at the moment responsible because I'm at the helm at the time when it happens, but it hasn't happened yet. We've still got 3 games to go, and I'm still hanging on to that glimmer of hope to try and get this club and maintain its status in the Football League.
You still believe that you might be able to pull off what would be a miracle?
Where Southend's concerned, we've got to win the last 3 games, and then you're in the lap of the gods with regards to Barrow. So I'm taking that. That's the deal at the moment. There's nothing else I can do about it.
I'm loath to ask you this, Phil, but have you thought about the fact there can't be too many managers out there who have taken a team out of the EFL's leagues through the top end and out of it through the bottom end as well?
No, that wouldn't be something I'd be proud of. Wouldn't be something I'd want on my CV. I remember as if it was yesterday, the moment we got promoted. But I also remember as if it was yesterday, the moment we got promoted from the second division with a 123rd minute equaliser and penalties after that is just phenomenal. So them highs up there have been brilliant, and a lasting memory, a lasting legacy in my career, as it were. 42 years down the lane, if I'm part and parcel of that exit of Southend United out of the Football League, it'll be probably the saddest day of my life. And that includes, people talk about births and deaths, and that's what football is, Getting promoted is like a birth of a child, that same feeling. Getting relegated is like a death in the family. So I don't really want to look forward to that, and I certainly don't really want to be part and parcel of that. And whilst it's within my power to win 3 games of football, that's what I've got to do. And if Barrow do their end of the bargain, well played, Is it really all my fault, 6 games? Probably not, but, bottom line is I've accepted the challenge.
Proud history, proud man, George. Terrible situation.
Yeah, really, really tough. And, you always feel sorry for fans of clubs who are dropping out of the EFL. I feel sorry for Grimsby fans and Southend fans, but specifically Southend fans at the moment, because, I can't go into it in too much detail because we don't have time and we could talk about it for a whole hour. But Ron Martin released a statement yesterday, the Southend owner and chairman, and it's in relation to comments made by Stan Collymore, who played for Southend in back in the 90s, trying to speak to him to help out with the club. And the statement itself just reads like a man basically in denial, who is unwilling to accept the failures of the club this season. He talks about trying to get Mick McCarthy in as manager during his spell as Ireland boss. It's frankly bizarre, and Stan Collymore has come out today saying that he's actually out now and he can't see a way that he can help the situation. It's desperate stuff. So yeah, the heart goes out, I guess, to Southend and Grimsby fans. It's great to hear that Phil Brown still has belief. I think he has to. It's his job. I personally don't think he can shoulder any of the blame for what's happened this season. They've been up against it, and that's going to be back-to-back relegations. So just keeping everything all fingers crossed that for Southend fans that things improve over the coming seasons.
Get a couple of coffees on board, George. 4 till 5 is going to be fun.
See you there.
Thank you. George Ellick from Not the Top 20 podcast will be back with us as we fly around the grounds for an hour, 4 till 5 before Sports Report, bringing you the teams going up and down and securing playoff places as they happen. It's going to be incredibly busy. Bournemouth and Brentford, remember, will both be secure of a playoff place if they draw. And they are drawing, Aaron Paul.
It is Bournemouth 0, Brentford 0. I'll tell you what, Steve, we spoke to Phil Brown on 72 Plus this week. My biggest disappointment is that we're going to probably be losing the best dressed manager out of the EFL. His sartorial decisions are just phenomenal. I mean, a mix of colours and fabrics like no one's ever seen before. As Bournemouth on the attack here with Junior Stanislas into the area. Stanislas goes wide, looking for the run of Solanke, but it's cleared away. But yes, Stanislas with his second big opportunity he's missed so far in this game. But Brentford up the other end, holding possession while they've had a massive chance. Sergi Canos poking the ball towards goal with a melee ensuing in the box. There was Steve Cook on the line to hack the ball away. End to end here, floodlights still beaming. Bournemouth 0, Brentford 0.
Thank you, Aaron. If it stays that way, Watford can win promotion today to the Premier League with just a draw against Millwall if Bournemouth and Brentford were to draw. If either of the team wins that game, though, Watford would need to win against Millwall to secure their place back in the Premier League at the first time of asking, although, as we've been telling you, they're in very good shape anyway. Over on 5 Live Sports Extra right now, we've got commentary of Aston Villa, Bristol City in the Women's Super League. Villa leading by 1-0. Bristol City bottom of the table. They'll be 2 points from safety with 2 games to go, having played 2 games more than the teams above them. So their future in the division is going to look very, very shaky. Newcastle's Premier League status looks a little bit safer, but do they still trail at Anfield? Juliet Farrington.
They do. They trail to Mo Salah's 4th minute half volley. It's Liverpool 1, Newcastle United 0. A couple of chances for Diogo Jota in the last few minutes as well. Fired over the bar from the edge of the D, and he just had a little effort there from Mane's cross straight at the keeper. But it's Leon Osman is alongside me. Newcastle have had they've had a couple of chances. They've got a couple of shots away, but it's a little bit flat. This, isn't it? It's a little bit.
Yeah, well, I think the early goal set the tone for this game. Liverpool having scored, it felt like they're in control. They are in control of this game, but Newcastle are certainly not out of it. They've had a huge chance for Longstaff moments ago. He took a little bit too long in getting the ball out of his feet, and Alisson made a big save. And they have tried to get in once or twice, just as we're speaking, just tried to get in on the counter-attack. So there are opportunities there for Newcastle, but Liverpool very much in control of this game.
And Sam Maximan as well. His pace is pretty lightning, isn't it? And him and Kabak, the little battle they've got going on there right now.
Yeah, definitely. If anything good is going to come for Newcastle today, Sam Maximan will be at the heart of it. He's been very lively, he's been terrific, and they're finding it difficult to stop him when he gets in full flight.
Midway through here at Anfield, Liverpool 1, Newcastle 0.
And if it stays that way, Liverpool will move back into the top 4 above both Chelsea and West Ham by a point. They play each other later at 5:30, which we will tell you about, of course, during Sports Report from 2 p.m. today. We're bringing you commentary of the Women's Six Nations final, England versus France. You can also watch it on BBC Two on the iPlayer. Actually, right now, you can watch the third place playoff between Italy and Ireland, and then the fifth place game, Wales-Scotland at 5 o'clock. Let's bring in our rugby union correspondent, Chris Jones, World Cup winner Natasha Hunt, and England fly half Meg Jones, all of whom are at the stoop for the final. And it was always going to be this final, wasn't it, Chris?
Yeah, I think so, Steve. Before the tournament, we were trying to, make it out that it was a more of a competition, maybe when you look to the fact that Scotland had got that draw against France in the autumn. But realistically, this is where we were always going to end up, at the stoop on the 24th with England against France. And the conversations about the competitiveness of the Six Nations across the piece do need to be had. But for today, I think we can really enjoy this one. It's two of the best teams in the world. It's two teams who have been in outstanding form. Both have put 50 points on all their opposition, and it's a really tough one to call, which is what it's all about.
Natasha, Meg, good afternoon.
Afternoon.
Do you think, Natasha, that given what we've seen from the two teams, is it easy to pick a favourite given every other game they've had? There has been that heavy expectation that they're not just going to win, but win well.
Oh, I really don't think it's an easy one to pick at all. I think you look at everything across social media, a lot of people are split on who they think's coming away with this one. Obviously, if you look at the form, France have only won one in the last 12 meetings with England. That was back in 2018. And so England on paper are probably favourites, but I just think the way this French side are playing, the offloading ability they've got, the variation in their attack, how solid their D is and how aggressive they are, I just think that it's going to be a real game that I don't want to put my heart on either side winning at the moment. And I'm sure that, well, I'm not sure if Meg or Chris think the same as well.
Meg? I think we might just be struggling with, with Meg's microphone. That's all right.
Apologies. I think that's a fair statement, Mo. I think what you've said about France, I think what they've brought to this competition is just pure class, jouet, as they say. But England, for me, I just think, you step up to the occasion. And I just think this back line and the forwards we've got, I think we can produce today. And I can't wait to see it. I know it's a tough call, but I'm back in England.
Where's it going to be won and lost then, Natasha?
For me, it's all about the collision. I think this England side, they always have a bit of an armchair ride. No disrespect to anyone else they play, but they're such powerful athletes. You look at the likes of Poppy Cleall, Zoe Allcroft, Kath O'Donnell. They're big ball carriers, equally in the front row, big ball carriers, and every time they're carrying, they're on the front foot. Whereas that's where I think this game's won and lost. If England don't get front foot ball, how does the 9, 10, 12 link, how does that merge? How do we control and manage the tempo, manage the field position? Obviously, without the likes of Katie Daly-McLean. Equally, if you look at this French side, if they can get in behind England, start playing those offload games, England don't face teams that do that an awful lot. Obviously, historically, you play someone like New Zealand, they don't really look at that offloading game. So it's massively going to come down to that for me. All about the breakdown, all about the collision and those dominant carries.
That's a big decision, Meg, that's been made on Poppy Cleall, who starts at 8. And I remember speaking really recently about Sarah Hunter and her amazing story and getting back into the game, and she's got to be on the bench.
Yeah, I know. I think equally in terms of Sarah Hunter, I think it's about her getting a bit of game time under her belt. I mean, she's been out for a fair bit, but I think we can't dispute how Poppy Cleall's been playing. And like Mo was saying about the French giving the offloads behind the defence, I think Poppy Cleall can bring that to the England team. And the way she wins the collision every time she runs, I think that's outstanding. But yeah, it's a tough corner. It's very competitive in that back row position.
We love to talk, Meg, about, when it comes to managers and their description of players and head coaches, and sometimes, they're very careful around them and they say, let's not get too much expectation. But talking about Poppy Cleall, Simon Middleton described her as the best in the world, so you can't get bigger praise.
Yeah, I think that's a good statement. But like I said, it's just so competitive in that backfield, and she's been outstanding for Premiership side as well, Saracens. So yeah, I'm excited to watch her play and also link up with Bryony when she comes off the bench.
What do you think are the real dangers then from France, Natasha? I was listening to Sarah Orchard on with Scott and Chris this morning on 5 Live, and she was talking about the fact that all of these players have got a big basketball background, which tells you something about how imposing they'll be.
Yeah, massively. I think not just the basketball background, they've also been playing rugby across the squad. Most of them have been playing since they were 6, 7, 8 years old. The average age is probably something like 24, but they have had so much rugby together, most of them on around 20 caps or higher. And they're just really starting to gel as a unit. You see the likes of Jared Ukulele coming back in from sevens. The back line are just firing at the minute. The timing of their pass, how much they're putting the pass out in front and how they're taking on teams, I just think that's going to be the thing that England need to stop.
And that's the thing, isn't it, Natasha? If, as you were saying, the battle of, the physicality, the gain line, the breakdown, if France edge that, Steve, they've got so much firepower out wide. You look at Boulard, the fullback, who at just 21 has been taking the tournament by storm. Caroline Boujard has scored 5 tries in 2 games. And Cyrielle Banet as well, the killer bees, the back 3. If they get ball in space, they can make some havoc today. So, yeah, this is what just sets the game up so beautifully, that both teams have all the component parts to beat each other, and that's what makes it so fascinating.
Chris, just before we let you go, just looking at England's men's team, the RFU, of course, given their backing to Eddie Jones this week. They've talked about systemic challenges, a number of contributory factors being behind their worst campaign in 45 years. That's according to their Six Nations review. So the coach isn't the problem.
I'm not sure about that review, Steve, and I know a lot of England fans who are in a similar boat. Look, it was a bit of a perfect storm for England. They had some coaches missing. It was a really difficult environment with COVID, the odd injury, but there's still the quality in that coaching team and playing personnel to perform a lot better than they did. And this review seemed to blame everyone else but Eddie Jones. And of course, it's not just Eddie Jones's fault, but there were, he picked the team, he prepared the team, he said constantly the Saracens players were going to be all right. Now the RFU are saying, oh no, actually they weren't match fit. He said, oh, the bubble's not a difficult environment. Then afterwards they're saying it was a difficult environment. He said there's no disruption at all with the coaches not being available. Now the RFU are saying, oh, it was massive disruption. So yeah, it didn't sit too well, because it seemed like they were more excuses rather than contributory factors. So I think England fans just want to see England back on the pitch and trying to put it right there, rather than kind of trying to come up with different reasons why they didn't perform.
Thank you very much for the time being, guys. Chris, Natasha and Meg will be your commentary team from 2 o'clock, so just under an hour's time. The final of the Women's Six Nations. The winners will be either England or France. We have been heading for this final for pretty much the entire tournament, and now we get to listen to them go head-to-head live on 5 Live Sport. It's Liverpool 1, Newcastle 0 in the Premier League. That means Liverpool are moving back into the top 4 as it stands. Bournemouth 0, Brentford 0 in the Championship. If it stayed like that, both of those teams would be secure in the playoffs, and Watford would only need a draw later with Millwall to complete their return to the Premier League. Much more to come on all of the football. We'll also tell you about County Championship cricket, World Championship snooker too. Let's break for the news with Jill Mackenzie.
Listen on BBC Sounds. This is BBC Radio 5 Live.
Doctors at just one hospital in India say at least 20 patients have died there because of a lack of oxygen supplies after a surge in the number of COVID cases. The country's recorded more than 1 million infections in the past 3 days. The Indonesian Navy says a submarine carrying 53 people that's been missing since Wednesday has sunk. Rescue teams found debris off the coast of Bali, and a scan detected the water too deep for it to operate. Labour is calling for a full investigation into allegations from Boris Johnson's former advisor Dominic Cummings, who said the Prime Minister considered allowing donors to secretly pay for renovations to his Downing Street flat. But Number 10 says all laws and codes of conduct have been obeyed. And a driver's died in a crash involving 3 lorries on the M5 in Gloucestershire. It happened overnight between junctions 13 and 14. Highways England says the motorway could remain closed for the rest of the day.
BBC Sounds.
Warning. We've obtained all your internal data. If you don't obey us, we'll release data to the world.
In 2014, the entertainment world was rocked by a huge hacking scandal.
There was chaos.
The Lazarus Group, a syndicate with North Korean ties, was blamed for the attack. Hollywood was just the beginning.
No cybercriminal had tried to transfer $1 billion. It was astounding.
A brand new podcast.
They would have killed me had they found out.
Is Kim Jong-un trying to train a young generation of warriors to wage warfare in a new frontier, cyberspace?
The Lazarus Heist. Listen on the BBC Sounds app.
This is 5 Live Sport
with Steve Crossman.
Just underway in League One, Portsmouth 0, Bristol Rovers 0. Remember, if Bristol Rovers do not win, they will become the first team in the EFL to be relegated from any division this season, going down from League One, Joey Barton's side, into League Two. One of 9 clubs whose divisional future can change and be confirmed this afternoon. In the Premier League, it's all about the race for the top 4. Liverpool, Newcastle at Anfield. Juliet Farrington.
And as it stands, Liverpool will be going into the top 4 at the end of this game. If this scoreline remains the same, it's Liverpool 1, Newcastle United 0. Mo Salah half volley, his 20th Premier League goal of the season. That came inside the opening 4 minutes. Since then, Diogo Jota, he's had a couple of good efforts, whilst it looks like Liverpool are in control. They aren't really. Should have done better with his best chance. Kieran Clark making a really bad pass inside his own box, and Jota couldn't capitalise and put his shot away and put it wide. But moments for Newcastle, there haven't been that many. They've had a few in front of goal. Longstaff got his shot away, forced a corner. Joe Linton should have done better with his effort when he had it. It was harmless, though, in the end for Alisson. I said moments before you came to me, this game really does need to spark up. Leon Osman, you're sitting alongside me with 10 to go.
Not from Newcastle's point of view. I think that if you're going to go 1-0 down at Anfield so early in the game, you're expecting to find it very difficult for the remaining 87. Just as we see Mo Salah go through one-on-one. Oh, it's a great save by Dubravka in goal. Should have scored there, but Liverpool will feel like they're in control of the game. They're spending the majority in Newcastle's half, creating half chances here and there, except for that one that he should have scored. But Newcastle will be quite pleased as well. They're a threat on the counter-attack. Joe Linton and Almiron have got into some great positions. As you said, Longstaff's had an opportunity. St. Maximum looks the outstanding player on the pitch at the moment. So I think that if Steve Bruce was to get in at 1-0 at half-time, he'll fancy his chances in the second half.
Half-time approaching in around 8 minutes or so. Liverpool 1, Newcastle United 0.
And just for the most pessimistic of pessimistic Newcastle fans, even if they lose that game, they will still be 8 points clear of Fulham. And remember, they did have a game in hand. So after this, they would both have played 33 matches in the Championship. Watford fans will be enjoying what they're watching, and their team isn't playing yet, Aaron Paul.
Absolutely. Bournemouth 0, Brentford 0. A fabulous chance for Ivan Toney. On the hunt for his 30th goal of the season, Steve. 29 goals, 10 assists this season in 41 games. Phenomenal stats from Ivan Toney, and he'll be kicking himself after missing probably the best chance of the game. The ball played from the halfway line through towards Toney. Steve Cook, the Bournemouth defender, missed it. I don't know if he slipped. It looked as if he did slip, but Toney played through on goal. He tried to put it through the legs of Asmir Begovic, but the wily old goalkeeper, he stood up firm and he was able to parry the ball away. Brentford going close again. They've dominated this first half in terms of efforts. It's Bournemouth 0, Brentford 0.
Thank you very much, Aaron. We've got Statman Dave and Andy Reid with us on 5 Live Sport, and a lot of this show is about being right up to date with everything that's going on in the EFL this afternoon from 4 till 5. We will be bringing you every twist and every turn. Then on Sports Report, all the best reaction as well from the managers and the players involved from 2 o'clock. So just under 50 minutes to go until kick-off in the Women's Six Nations final. We'll bring you full commentary of England versus France. But let's start now the build-up to the big game tomorrow, which has almost been lost in all of the chaos of the last week. But we've got the first major trophy of the English season to be decided. Of course, it's the EFL Cup final at Wembley Stadium. The holders, Manchester City and Tottenham Hotspur, kick off at 4:30. I guess, Dave, if it hadn't been for the ESL, Jose Mourinho sacking on Monday might just have got 1 or 2 more headlines.
Yeah, it's weird that such a big manager in the English game kind of went under the radar. But if you look at the stats for his sort of Tottenham spell, especially this season, lost 13 games in all comps, which is the most he's managed in a single campaign. But the big one was dropping points from winning positions. So this season, Spurs have dropped 20 points from winning positions. Only Southampton have dropped more points. And even if you were to, let's say, put it at the same level as Man City, who have dropped 7 points from winning positions this season, that would put Spurs joint second in the Premier League at 66 points. And I think that shows where Jose's low block, maybe a little bit of work needed on that to, the defensive stability may be there, but it's all about that kind of Jose, as soon as he takes that lead, bring on an extra defender, maybe not the way that Tottenham played under Pochettino, maybe the players adapting to that has been difficult. But it's been a difficult season for Jose. And Ryan Mason's coming at 29 years old, which is the youngest manager ever in the Premier League.
Well, we'll go into more depth, Andy, but just sort of right off the bat, the very idea of a club changing their manager in the same week that they have a cup final just seems absolutely incredible.
Yeah, it does. It's a bit of a strange one. It's always very, very difficult to read Daniel Levy. I I know that from personal experience. It's you know, it is always very difficult to read them and see. My issue with it is that you would think that on any given day Jose Mourinho could put out a team capable of going to win a game. He'd be capable of setting up a team to win a game. Maybe not how I would like to set up a team to win a game of football, but you know, you could see him setting up a team to beat a Man City in the game. So that made it a little bit strange. I'm thinking back, and I was just listening to Dave and the bits that he was saying. I'm thinking back to that result at Man United and to where Tottenham were at the time in the league, and where the feel around the place that they really felt that they were onto something. And it's so football changes so